we have a crisis in the world, tremendous crisis, and also crisis in our consciousness, in us. I see the urgency of change, radical revolution, mutation in the mind. I see it. It is necessary. There is complete quietness of the mind, and that which is silent has vast space. Only then that which is nameless comes into being.
This is Urgency of Change, the Krishnamurti podcast. There is an ending to effort, struggle, and all forms of resistance and escapes when you understand the nature and the structure of will, which is born of choice and effort. Hello and welcome to episode 226 of Urgency of Change. Each episode of the Krishnamurti podcast features carefully selected clips from our extensive archives. The aim is to represent different aspects of Krishnamurti's radical approach to many of the issues and questions we all face in our lives. This week's theme is will. Upcoming themes are emptiness, questioning, and disorder. This is a podcast from Krishnamurti Foundation Trust, based at Brockwood Park in the UK, which is also home to the Krishnamurti Retreat Centre. Situated in the beautiful countryside of the South Downs National Park, the Krishnamurti Centre offers individual retreats and in groups. The focus is on inquiry in light of Krishnamurti's teachings. Please visit krishnamurticentre.org.uk for more information. You can also find our regular Krishnamurti quotes and videos on Instagram, TikTok and Facebook at Krishnamurti Foundation Trust. If you enjoy the podcast, please leave a review or rating on your podcast app, which helps our visibility. This week's episode on will has 3 sections. This first extract is from Krishnamurti's 7th talk in Saanen, 1977, and is titled, "What is the Nature and Structure of Will?"
We're going to find out in our examination whether it is possible to live a life where there is a holistic movement, a movement that is whole, non-fragmented. And when there is a movement of such nature, there is no necessity for decision at all. And that implies the action of will. What is will? Why do we depend so much on will? I will do this and I will not do that. This is good, that is bad, and I follow. The capacity to exercise will. And we think will is part of freedom. Free will and all the rest of it. We are going to question all that together. Because we have questioned everything here, right? We have questioned all the religious attitudes. We have questioned authority. We have questioned whether human beings can be utterly, totally, completely be free of fear. And also we have questioned what is love and so on. Because when one accepts, obeys and follows, you end up in uncertainty. But if you begin with uncertainty, that is, you are questioning, doubting, then you end up in certainty. But we unfortunately start the other way. And we are asking, what is the nature of will, and why is it that human beings depend on that capacity and give such importance to the man who has strong will? So we are going to ask together, what is the nature and the structure of will? Will is desire, heightened, strengthened by constant exercise of desire. It is the essence of desire, will. And where there is desire, there must be illusion. We went into it the other day. And so we are saying whether will in action does not lead to not only illusion, but to every form of resistance, and therefore exclusion, therefore isolation. And is it possible to live a daily life without any kind of will? We are educated from childhood to the exercise of will. You must, when you are children, you must concentrate, you must obey, you must do this, you cannot do that. And our whole way of life is based on that. And will implies choice. Right? I hope we are carefully reasoning together, logically, sanely going into this question. We are not asserting anything. We are reasonable people, I hope, serious people. Therefore, we are capable of examining without any prejudice, conclusion, belief. So we are saying, where there is will, there is choice. Right? And choice comes about when there is no clarity. Right? Both objectively and inwardly. When there is no clarity, then the choice begins. And I choose to do that, which is the exercise of will, which is the essence of desire. We went into the question of also, what is desire? We said desire is the movement of seeing, perception, contact, sensation. And thought makes that sensation into desire and the image that goes with the desire. I won't go into all this, there's no time for all that now. We've explained enough about what is the nature and the structure of desire. Am I talking? All right. So we are questioning what is the necessity of choice. And from choice, the exercise of will, and will is the essence of desire. I hope you follow this. when there is clarity, to see things exactly as they are. Not romantically, emotionally, with prejudice, with what you would like it to be, but to see things absolutely as they are in daily life brings about an extraordinary quality of clarity. Right? And where there is clarity, there is no need for exercise of will or choice. You see this? See the beauty of it. So one can live in daily life without any kind of will, choice, and resistance. If there is something that is impediment, you go around it, move, like water. So there is, rather interesting, I'm just discovering it. So there is a movement which is likened to water. A river cleanses itself as it moves. But if there is too much pollution dropped in it, it can never clean itself. That is what is happening to us. Society, education, authority, except the authority of surgeon, doctor, and so on. We've discussed that very clearly. So, this stream is constantly being polluted, our human life, which is really a marvelous stream if there is no pollution. And one of the deep causes of this pollution is this lack of clarity. Lack of clarity when there is lack of clarity, there is choice, will, and action, confined to a very narrow field. If you see that, not theoretically, intellectually, or merely through words, but actually have an insight into the nature of this activity of will, then that very insight clears away the pollution which is called the will. Right? We also talked about when there is clarity, that clarity must go with compassion. You can be very clear intellectually. As most thoughtful, intellectual people are, very, very, very clear. But their clarity is limited because there is no compassion with it. We went to the nature of compassion. We said compassion comes through the understanding of pleasure. Please follow this. Compassion is like a flower that's born. You cannot be compassionate. You cannot cultivate compassion. You cannot cultivate love. But when you understand the nature and the structure of pleasure, whether it's sexual or the pleasure of a position, a status, and so on, the pleasure, the pursuit of pleasure. That pursuit of pleasure is the movement of thought in time. And without understanding pleasure, love becomes a very shoddy little affair. And we went to the also where there is suffering, various forms of suffering, which we talked over together the other day. Out of that suffering, with the understanding of what love is, compassion is born. That compassion is not mine or yours. Out of that compassion comes intelligence. So, intelligence cannot operate when there is the activity of will. I wonder if you see this. Will is desire. Desire is not compassion. We've been through this very deeply the other day. So, we are saying, taking the journey together, exploring together, whether it's possible to live a life in which the action of will doesn't exist at all, which means effort. The constant effort brought about through the action of will. We are to have an insight into this is to be free of it completely. And we said to have an insight, the mind must be empty. Empty of your conclusions, your prejudices, your experiences, your hopes. You are all empty to have an insight from which arises intelligence. We talked about it the other day, right? So, to have an insight into the whole nature and the structure of will and decision, out of which comes this enormous trouble. So there is an ending to effort, struggle, and all the forms of resistance and escapes and eroticism when you understand the nature and the structure of will, which is born of choice and effort.
The second extract is from the third talk in Saanen, 1976, and is titled, Is Change Dependent on Will?
Why do human beings living in this chaos, misery, why is it they don't change? Some of you have listened to this speaker, unfortunately, for 50 years. Why in the name of heaven haven't you changed? Radically, not superficially, just dropping one church or this or that. That's all trivial stuff. So one demands, why? We said it's not the lack of energy. You've got plenty of energy to come here, sit in this hot tent, travel all round and come and listen. You've got plenty of energy. Is it the lack of will? Will implies... No, let's begin slowly. What is will? I will do this. I won't do that. I must and must not. What is this will which plays such tremendous part in our life? Please go into it with me. Not accepting what the speaker is saying. Find out for yourself in heaven's name what will is. Because that plays such an extraordinary part in our life. I must give up smoking. I must not do this. and so on. What is that will? It's a movement, isn't it? Obviously. A movement in a direction, in a particular direction, either the negative direction or the positive direction, but it's a direction. Please listen carefully. When there is a direction, there is time involved. I am here and I must be there. I am angry, I must get rid of anger. There. So will is a movement in time. Right? Please. And what is that? The essence of that will. What brings about or what generates that will? You understand my question? As long as you have a directive, an end, you must have a will. So what is the nature and the structure of will? When you say, I will do that, what is that? And when you say, I will not do that, or mustn't do that, the movement, what is that takes place? Is it opposing desires? The desire that says, I will, and the desire says, I will not. So desire, strengthened, concentrated, is will. Right? Opposing. Or completely unified. Follow? So, what is desire? Please listen, you understand? We are used to being conditioned to exercise will. You smoke, begin to smoke gradually, it comes into habit, and you find it is necessary to have that habit, and you say, I must fight it. I must get rid of it. For various biological or emotional or psychological reasons. So will is the essence of desire. And what is desire? We are examining this because we are trying to find out why human beings don't change after millennia. You understand? Why live in this miserable way? We said we've got plenty of energy. And now we are asking, is it the lack of will? And we are examining the nature of will, the structure of it, how it is formed, how it comes into being. So, we said desire is the essence of will. So what is desire? Please examine through my words, speaker's words, the issue in yourself. Desire is sensation plus thought plus the image which thought creates. You understand? Sensation, seeing something and seeing, then the thought taking over this observation, then thought creating the image. This sensation plus thought plus the image. Right? That is desire. From that, all our activity of will takes place. So the question is, as long as there is a will, there is a directive, and therefore movement towards that direction, positive or negative. And that is the pattern which we are used to. Having sensations, thought, and thought plus sensation creating the image. The image that I must be that. The image that I must not be that. You follow? All that is will. And that we have exercised that will endlessly. The socialists, the communists, the religious people, the non-religious people, this movement is all the time going on. That's our conditioning. Which is, in the psychological field, this movement of desire plus thought and image is constant. And as long as that mechanistic process goes on, there cannot be change. There cannot be psychological deep revolution. So, how can this movement come to an end? You understand my question? I wonder if you understand all this. Is this becoming a bit difficult? You understand? I'm a human being. I've lived in the pattern of agony, suppression, quarrels, violence, bitterness, an occasional feeling of tenderness, occasional sense of something which I've dreamt of or dreamed, I feel immense, all that. I've lived like that as a human being. And I say to myself, why am I living this way? I know I'll die, there's always death, but I lived during that 50, 20, 30, 80 years in a squalid pigsty way. Why? Is it lack of... I won't come to that yet. Is it lack of energy? I say I've got plenty of energy when I want to do something. Is it lack of will? And I begin to examine the will, the whole nature of will. And that's my habit conditioning. Now I'm questioning if I can break that habit, if that habit can be broken. That is, not to operate on will at all. You understand? Will only comes into being, please listen, comes into being when sensation, which is natural, which is acceptable, which is normal, sane, when that sensation is taken over by thought. And that thought creates the image. So is it possible to be completely wholly with sensation and no interference of thought? You understand what I'm saying? You see a beautiful house, beautiful woman, nice man, see the hills and the glory of the earth. When you observe, there's tremendous sensation. If you are at all watching, And then thought comes along and says, yes, how marvelous. From that begins the image making, the picture making, the imagination. Now, is it possible to have this complete sensation, which is normal, healthy, sane, and not let thought seep in? You understand? When thought seeps in, you have the projection of tomorrow. I don't know if you see that. You see something extraordinarily beautiful. And all your senses are awake. Then thought comes along and says, I must have it tomorrow, which is the image making. The pleasure, you follow? The delight of something beautiful. Thought has taken over, created an image, and therefore there is tomorrow. You understand? So the tomorrow is the process of time, which is thought. So in the psyche, there is only sensation, no tomorrow. I wonder if you see this. This little bit complex, is it? I see some people are not. Let me explain it more. We live in the hope of tomorrow. Right? Tomorrow to us is tremendously important. As yesterday, the images of yesterday, all that is as important, the past, as tomorrow. So we live in the past and tomorrow becomes tremendously significant. So psychologically we are saying, what is tomorrow? There is tomorrow, which is Friday. We have to do certain things. But psychologically, we are asking, what is tomorrow? Tomorrow is the directive. Please do see the beauty of this. Tomorrow is the directive. The end, the goal. And so tomorrow psychologically assumes a great significance. And psychologically, inwardly, the tomorrow is the movement of thought in time. Movement of thought as a material process in time. Tomorrow is a measurement. Right? Where there is a measurement, there must be illusion. Oh, come on. I'm afraid you don't see all this. Look, measurement means comparing. Isn't it? I am not so beautiful as you are. I am not so intelligent as you are. Right? I want to be as intelligent as you are, which is measurement. Comparison is measurement. So thought is a process of comparison. So thought is measurement, which is the directive from what is to what should be. Right? Now, is there such thing as tomorrow in the psychological world? If I live with tomorrow, then it's a mechanistic process, right? Because thought has created tomorrow. psychologically. That may be an illusion altogether. So I must, as a human being, I must find out. Because that's the pattern, that's the conditioning, that's the accepted norm of existence, which may be totally absurd. Because I'm concerned as a human being with the radical transformation. And we are examining the will in action. And will in action means tomorrow, the directive. And is there such thing as tomorrow? Psychologically, apart from biologically, physically. I need time, that is tomorrow if I have to learn a language, if I have to drive a car and so on and so on. So is there a tomorrow? There is no tomorrow when there is only sensation and no image and no thought. I wonder if you capture it. Do you get it? See, people, especially so-called religious people, the monks throughout the world, have said sensation is totally wrong, control it. Because sensation leads to desire. And desire means the woman or the man. God cannot accept a man who has desire. You know, you've heard all this stuff put in different words. Therefore, suppress desire. Therefore, control all your sensations. Because if you don't, you are in the devil's hand. So we are saying something quite opposite, which is sensation is natural. Sensation must exist, does exist, it's a fact. If you don't have your sensation fully alert, you are paralyzed. You may be paralyzed because we have learned the art of suppressing. So there is this, all your sensations. When that sensations meet the movement of thought, then there is tomorrow. Because thought is a fragment. Thought is a fragment because it is based on yesterday's memory. Thought is never whole. So sensation totally is whole. Therefore there is no tomorrow. You understand all this? Don't agree with me. Please, do it. See what happens when you do. Look at those hills, at anything. Look at it with all your senses fully awakened. Senses, not only your brain, your mind, because mind is part of the sensations. Matter. It's all your sensations. Then you will see thought comes along and the image making begins and tomorrow will happen. But when there is only complete sensation without the movement of thought, there is only now. No tomorrow. Oh, I wonder if you see this. So, is it because we have no energy that we don't change? And we see we have got energy. Whenever we want to do something, we break everything to do it. And this is the lack of will. We see the mischief of will. So there is an action which is born not out of will, but out of the perception of this movement of will. You understand? So there is an action which is not born from an image, which is fragmentary, but an action born out of total awareness, which is total sense of sensation. This is very important, all this. If you misunderstand, it's not my fault. Then, if it is not lack of energy, then will has no place. Then why is it that human beings haven't changed? Is it that they're always thinking of reward and punishment, which is the motive for our operation? You are brought up from childhood on that basis. Reward if you are good, punish if you are not. Reward if you struggle, climb the ladder, you are rewarded. You become the executive or the president or God knows what else, or the bishop. So our conditioning is based on reward and punishment, which is the motive. A motive based on reward and punishment. Motive means a movement. The word itself means a movement. See what is implied. Moment you have a motive, the movement is time. So you say, I will take time to change. If it is not reward and punishment, then it is I am going to have now whatever you reward. So, where there is a motive, there is a direction, and the direction is set by thought, and so tomorrow. So as long as there is a motive, all action is incomplete. Isn't it? If I love you, because you give me food, this, that, and the comfort and all the rest of it, it's my motive. It isn't love. So, is there an action without motive? You understand my question? Moment I have a motive as a human being, whatever I do is partial, fragmentary, which will bring about regret, pain, suffering, all the rest of it. So I'm asking, as a human being, is there an action without a motive? Don't translate it into saying love. Because that word is so abused, so heavily laden. Don't bring in that word. We'll discuss it another time. So is there an action in which there is no tomorrow, no will, only total energy? Isn't it? When you have total energy, there's total action.
The final extract in this episode is from Krishnamurti's 6th talk in Saanen, 1971, and is titled, Is it possible to live without will?
Can life function, living, carrying on daily life, without any form of resistance? A resistance is obviously will. I know you're all brought up on will, in the sense that you must not, should not, control or will. will is independent of the fact. Will is the assertion of the self, please follow all this, of the me, independent of what is. Right? Will is desire. The manifestation of desire is will. And we function superficially or at great depth in this assertion and resistance of desire as will, which is unrelated to the fact, depending on the desire of the me, the self. Right? Are we meeting with each other? Right. So I'm asking, is it possible to live in this world without the operation of will at all, knowing what will is? Will is a form of resistance. Will is a form of division. I will against something I will not. I must against something I must not. So, will is building a wall in action against every other form of action. Right? Are we getting? I don't want to run by myself. We only know action either conforming to a formula, to a concept, or approximating according to an ideal, and acting in relationship to that ideal, to that pattern, to that formula. That's what we call action. And in that, there is conflict. There is not only imitation of what should be, which we have projected as an ideal, and according to that act. And therefore there is a conflict between the act and the ideal. Right? Because in that there is always an approximation, imitation, conformity. I hope we are watching our own activities, our own mind. How we exercise will in action. And I feel that's a total wastage of energy. And I'm going to show why. As we said, will is independent of the fact of what is and depending on the self, what it wants, not what it is, but what it wants. And that want depending on its circumstances, environment, culture, and so on. Divorced from the fact. Therefore, there is contradiction. Therefore, there is a resistance against what is. And that is a wastage of energy. And action means the doing now, not tomorrow or having acted. Action is in the present. Now, can there be action without the idea, without the formula, without the concept, and action in which there is no resistance as the will? And therefore, if there is will, there is contradiction and resistance and effort, which is a wastage of energy. So I want to find out if there is an action without any will, which is the assertion of the me as resistance. Are you interested in all this? Yes. Good luck to you. I doubt it, but it's all right. I'll go on. Because you see, we are slaves to the present culture. We are the culture. And if there is to be a different kind of action, different kind of life, and so different kind of culture altogether, not the counterculture, but something entirely different, one must understand this whole question of will. Will belongs to the old culture, in which is involved ambition, drive, the whole assertion and the aggression of the me. And if there is to be a totally different way of living, one has to understand the central issue. That is, can there be action without a formula, a concept, an ideal, a belief, an action based on knowledge, which is the past, and therefore not action? Follow all this. Therefore, conditioned, and being conditioned, if it is dependent on the past, must inevitably create discord and therefore conflict. So I want to find out, both of us, we are inquiring, if there is an action in which will doesn't enter at all, and therefore choice. We said the other day, where there is confusion, there must be choice. A man who sees things very clearly, either neurotically or obstinately, he doesn't choose as the man who sees very clearly. So, choice, will, resistance, the me in action is wastage of energy. And is there action unrelated to all this. So that the mind lives in this world, functioning in the field of knowledge, and yet be free to act without the impediment of the limitation of knowledge. I wonder if I'm there. You know, it's awfully difficult to convey all this verbally, especially to so many people. If 2 or 3 of us were sitting together, we could go into this very quickly. We'd have direct contact, direct communion, which is communion being sharing together as we go along very quickly. Not only at the verbal level, but also at a deeper level, non-verbally. I say, the speaker says, there is such action. An action in which there is no resistance, no interference of the past, no response of the me. Now that action is because it is not in the field of time, time being yesterday, with all the knowledge experience, which acts today, and the future is already established by the past. There is an action which is instantaneous and therefore complete, in which will doesn't operate at all. And to find that out, mind must learn how to observe, how to see. If the mind sees according to the formula what you should be or what I should be, then action is of the past. Right? Now I'm asking, is there an action which is not motivated, which is in the present, and which doesn't bring contradiction, anxiety, conflict? As I said, the mind, which has been trained, brought up in a culture that believes and functions and acts with will, such a mind obviously cannot act in the sense we are talking about, because it's conditioned and therefore cannot. So can the mind, your mind, see this conditioning and be free of it, so as to act differently, right? If my mind is trained, held in education, the whole business, to function with will, then it cannot possibly understand what it is to act without will. Therefore, my concern is not how to find out how to act without will, but rather to find out if my mind can be free of its conditioning, which is the conditioning of will. Right? That's my concern. And I see, as I look into myself, that everything I do has a secret motive or a deep is the outcome of some anxiety, fear, the demand for pleasure and so on. Now, can that mind free itself instantly to act differently? Right? You're getting what I'm talking about, for the love. Come on. So I must learn, the mind must learn how to look. That is the central problem for me. This mind, which is the result of time, result of various cultures, experience, knowledge, can it look with eyes that are not conditioned? That is, can it operate instantly being free of its conditioning? So I must learn to look at my conditioning without any desire to change, to transform, or to go beyond it. Right? I must be capable of looking at it as it is. Right? If I want to change it, then I bring about again the action of will. If I want to escape from it, again, a resistance. If I keep some and reject others, it's again choice. And choice, as we pointed out, confusion. So can this mind look without any resistance, without any choice?